So speaking of that, right? Did you see a lot of that growing up, like BMF?
It wasn't called BMF. In essence, yes, but it was a lot of money being like nurtured out there, but they didn't have a signature name. It's not like they had the BMF thing because man, you got to remember, not like you got to remember, but okay, Detroit, our drug culture was crazy because we had a lot. And I know I'm about to be kind of anti-black mark right now, but we had a lot of middle class work because of the car industry. And then you got the car industry, but then you got the secondary car industry, right? So we had a lot of middle class where you don't see that. You don't see like when you go to Manhattan, everybody is doing this hustle, that hustle, this hustle. You don't really see a lot of factory workers in New York or primarily even in LA in terms of the auto industry. So you had like middle class people who they didn't go to school. I got some of my friends, and I'm not saying they're drug addicts, but some of my friends, the day they graduated, like in June, they instantly went to work in the factory. That was part of that's like, you could be white, Asian, you went to the factory. And with that being said, they had a lot of extra money being and I'm talking about high middle class. A lot of factory workers, they get paid, man.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after before NAFTA and all that shit, and, they started man, it was like they were like you would hit the lottery. Matter of fact, in essence, it was a lottery to get into, like, the big 3, Ford, Chrysler, GM. So
Well, that they had pensions and shit like that before, right?
yeah, man. Yeah, but
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you can't find that shit anymore. Like any kind of company that will give you a pension, pretty much.
nah, but my point being is it was a lot of money in a factory and a lot of drugs. So a lot of the party life. Cause look, you work in that hard labor. You sometimes, and I'm not making a blanket statement here, but a lot of those people would have to get like a upper to go into work. Motherfuckers was working. Factories would sometimes be 24/7. 3-hour shift, three shifts. But we were really so man. All of them, they were man. The drug culture here was crazy. We had the drug dealers, they would go get fly, they would go get clothes, and then they would go to clubs and strip clubs. So with me being in the music business, it was almost like unilateral. It was almost like we all was in the same culture. Well, we were in the same culture. When you talk about girls, money, and drugs and music, that's peanut butter and jelly. So I seen it all. That was part of the whole thing about hip hop. I mean, not hip hop, but that was just part of the music industry. So yeah. But at the time BMF started, that name, I started hearing about it, ooh, maybe like '05. Like I started hearing the name and the true, because most people wanted an unidentified crew. They just wanted to, you seen guys with their cars and their jewelry, but it wasn't like, we got a gang culture here, but we don't have like a gang culture like they got in like New York and LA. So it wasn't like BMF, it was other gangs that were prominently known. But like a quote unquote a drug gang, it was a lot of drug gangs. So they kind of like fit the mold. But then I want to recall BMF started getting huge because everybody was selling drugs. But well, and weed is a drug, of course, but the weed, when they started like those bales of weed and all of that stuff, when they started doing that, oh, that's when their name really started resonating. It was like the weed game. They like it was that was wild.
That's crazy, man. Yeah. And so what do you think about, the whole situation with 50 and BMF and everything like that?
I can't get a pulse on it. I just state my opinion is maybe something. All shit went to hell when all of them started getting out of jail. Like when they started to prison. I really plan. I really cannot. I don't know. It it was like the show was successful. I love the show. I always watch every episode, and I don't know what really happened with that whole situation. It once again, it's that social media war. It seems like Rick Ross got involved.
Yeah, it was because Big Meech, after he got out, he started to hang out with Rick
Yeah.
Ross, and he was going over there to get money and stuff like that. And I think that he was short-sighted by doing that. Like, you already had this good situation with 50. Why would you go over there with his enemy? You know what I'm saying? And I get it that he been locked up for so long, he needed money, but it was like 50 had put your son through acting school, had made him a star, all types of stuff. Of course, he had to capitalize off of it himself as well, right? But like, he really did put him in a system that was beneficial for him. And I think that also when Meech got out, he was trying to put his like influence on things.
Well, I tell you this though, it's a lot to that on both sides. Just my opinion. And once again, I have worked with 50 through Shady Records, and we've done business. Even when I was working with D12, we had to work with G Unit. Not we had to, but it was great. We made songs, when I was managing D12, we made songs with G Unit for the 8 Mile soundtrack, and we did business together. Matter of fact, 50 did Forgive Me. He did the Proof hook for Proof only album that Proof unfortunately had put out.
Wait, he re-recorded that? That's not a sample?
No, yeah, no, but I mean, we had to clear it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So, but he didn't re-record it though,
He might have. I don't know. I think we had to do something with that record, but it got cleared.
because he took it from that's from Ghetto Quran.
Yeah, but no, it was but of course 50 signed off on it, and we did, we worked out, we had to get it cleared and all of that. Um, but I'm just saying, so I mean, I'm just being transparent that I've done business with, like, Sha Money and 50 and all that. But I think it's some parts missing in the story on both sides.
Mhm.
And that's the part of the internet. It's
I'm not gonna lie though, I think it's kind of sad what happened with Lil Meech, because it seemed like he got caught up with drugs, and kind of the fame kind of got to him a little bit, because he made some bad moves, bro.
Yeah, I cannot speculate on that, to be honest. But I mean, but you give me like 20 or 50 topics. It's all like the power of it, the internet and Instagram. I think they should have worked it out behind the scenes, but it's some parts missing in that. It's some parts.
Yeah. But you know how 50 is though. 50, he's like he don't hold back, man. So, but you know what, with the whole BMF thing, and because you had ties to Bad Boy at one point, do you remember the whole situation with BMF and Diddy's bodyguard, Wolf?
I never got into none of that. I mean, what you got to remember, man, is that Panda, we didn't have the internet, like we didn't have the social media like that. I mean, we knew about it, but it wasn't like that. It wasn't all of that was like I said, man, I even said earlier in this interview, yeah, Puffy and G Unit, they had their thing, but man, I had a house. I co-owned a house called Dirty Mansion because our management company, it was kind of like, we played off of the Dirty Dozen D12. And so our management company was called Dirty Management, right? And I had one of my friends, John, he owned some houses. And I said, man, I brought a house from him. Like during the era of we were managing, and we turned it, the house was so fucking big that we had enough room to live in there, and it was our offices. It was our office too. And it got called Dirty Mansion, right? We didn't keep it dirty, but it was called Dirty Mansion. Man, we had so much fun. It was so much drama in our own lives. And I mean, not drama, we was having fun. I even mentioned that of our first interview with Proof, we were we had our own uh we had our own carnival. So when we talk about this person and that person, it's kind of hard in the day and the time that you live in your life, and we not we attuned to what's going on, and we read the headlines, but to get in depth of that and make a solid statement, it's hard. I mean, but I just wish people would work it out. Yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, for sure.
I wish I could give more, but I mean, you ask me certain questions, we could go on for like certain things you ask me, Panda. I could go on there for 30 or 40 minutes, but and that is not you, but I'm just saying certain things. I'm inquisitive the way you inquisitive. I wish I knew, but I'm reading what the public is reading, you know?
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.